talking about democracy dialogue, what are those things that are actually missing in our democracy today?
Well, there are many things that are missing. So we can start with the values. Democracy is supported by informal values, norms, and network. So democracy is not about just the formal institution. Election is a formal institution. Election is underwritten by cultural behavior, what you can sum up as civic consciousness. So in our own democracy, we have elections that are not democratic because there is no accountability, citizen responsiveness is low, institutional check and balance is poor. But if you look at the formal system, the traditional system, we had monarchies, constitutional monarchies. Some part of Nigeria we had republican system. But the citizens, the women group, the children group, the Amadi, they all play a role to constrain abuse of power. So what is missing about democracy is that we have borrowed the former institutions, what we call legal transplant. But the logic, the culture, the dynamism that defines its performance in developed countries is absent. So we have elections, but there's no sanctity around votes, and the speaker talked about people in power deciding who votes, deciding which party. We have multiple democracy, multi-party system, but people in power can foreclose a political party through judiciary. We talk about democracy as the will of the people, but when people vote, even if the results are clear, the leaders can compound, confuse, and distort the results. So what is missing fundamentally is that the spirit of democracy is not there. The shell is there, but that spirit is made up of what we call in Western philosophy civic consciousness. But in our own system, I call it cultural citizenship. We are people themselves, connect, believe in the structure, engage, activate it, police their boundaries, demand effectively, and participate. So our democracy is hollow. Our democracy has no participatory quotient, very low, accountability quotient, very low, even responsiveness quotient, that means that the people in power respond to the people, is very low. Why? Because there's now a separation between formal and informal. So for example, in the Southeast, you have a very strong August meeting going on, strong women group, strong youth group, masquerade groups, but none of these can come together and impose accountability on formal government. So we have two realms now, formal and informal. People in power control everything. They're not accountable to people who are in power. The people not in power are organized, active, but they're not connected to demand and extract responsiveness. So democracy is a hollowed democracy. It's not real. It's not anchored on cultural and social networks. Social institutions are separate, political institutions are separate. But in developed countries where democracy is working, social institutions are connected with political institutions. In fact, they provide the activism, the vitality, the life of those institutions. That's the difference.
Why do you think that we have this kind of break, or we can't with this kind of disconnect? So which has been affecting the community. So why?
Because first, when we fought military rule, and I was part of that in 1999, the people who sat back were deceived by the importation of elections. We had elections, they produced winners and losers, the people sat back. The political parties were not grounded in the people. In the First Republic, we had regional parties, though they were ethnically focused. They were really grounded with the people. They were responsive. The people at the local level could connect with them, could mold them, could discipline them because it's their party. Today, we have national franchise, not connected to anybody, whether in the region. So, for example, you can't say APM is in this state now. You cannot say APM is connected to the people. It's their own party. APM is what they adopt. They can move from PDP to APM, to NDC to APC. So what we have today are 18 or more national franchise having no connection to the people. In the Second Republic, we had UPN, all those parties. They were ethnic, yeah, but they were connected. So A party like NCNC had people who it evolved for the people. A party like MPC, maybe northern based, but it evolved with the people. A party like Action Group, maybe Western, Yoruba based, but it's evolved for the people. So it was better that ethnically oriented parties came together to negotiate. Today we have a national parties, but none of them is rooted in a civil constituency beyond the politicians. That's what we got wrong. So we now had a democracy defined more like SPV, more like commercial transaction. Owners meet, transact, do a deal. If it fails, they quarrel. If the deal is win-win, they move on. The people are left behind. It's not about development. The First Republic, Second Republic, the parties had different ideas about development. They were fighting for different developmental outcome. It might be ethnic, but it was real. In Fourth Republic, parties were not fighting over anything, but about access to power. So the means and the end coincided. Power was the end. The means was power. In the past, development was the end. The means was politics. They may have different outcomes, but they were at least committed to a developmental model. So today's parties are neither original, connected, not even ideological. They are neither fighting for anything. In fact, it's better they were quarreling, conflictual, real fight, but for something. Today, it's just a merry-go-round. It's political subterfuge and conspiracy for the purpose of winning party, winning power for purpose of power. If we were discussing something important, if our leaders, the president and his team and the opposition, we are fighting for something important, that voice will be marginal and fringe. Nobody will care. In all societies at every time, there are fringe people who are extremists but not impactful. Nobody bothers. But the problem is this. There's no national discourse. What we have now is dangerous, terrorist-oriented religious discourse. That discourse is terrible. By now, he ought to have been arrested by the EFCC, by the DSS. Question, because it's a national security threat, real threat. But he has a right to free speech. But he would have been asked to explain more whether there's a real danger or group organizing on that ideology. But that ideology is outlawed by our constitution. But the problem is this. It's not by him. It's that our leaders themselves cannot swear that they are not possessed of the same extremism in one form or the other. So I would disregard such statements. I would rather focus on asking the big question. What does the APC, the NDC, and the ADC think about national development? How are they having that conversation? Are they willing to fight in 2027 on the basis of grand narratives that are different? Are they willing to fight on the basis of various different visions and models of development? And are the people themselves going to be allowed and themselves really excited to take over their life, to take charge of their life, agency, and ask questions and say, what do you have to offer? 8 years you've offered nothing. The APC has been in power for now 10 to going to 12 years, I guess. By 27 will be 12 years. Is it 12 years of retardation, of degeneracy, of confusion, of division? If the answer is yes, the people say, get beside us. If the powerful people say, go again. So this idea, and that's what the keynote said to them, in Africa, that incumbency means continuity. It's horrible. We saw it with our NFF. For this year, we've performed terrible. We're on the World Cup, where we've missed out on the first time we've got out at the quarterfinal at AFCON. We're likely going to miss the World Cup. Flying Eagles brushed and kicked away under a terrible, incompetent NFF leadership. You know the poster for the re-election? Continuity. The same way with the national election. The federal government has failed woefully, increased poverty, increased insecurity, destroyed political democracy and accountability. But the argument, his campaign slogan is continuity. That worries me more than the very silly statement of a cleric.
The opposition, do you think opposition are ready to actually prepare for this 2027 election?
Talk about opposition, talk about P2B or Atiku. No, we are the opposition. Their job is to say we are willing to lead, and our job is to scrutinize them. If you ask me, I think that even as divided as they are, the opposition can defeat Tinubu. In 2019, P2B and Atiku Abubakar and P2B were presumed to have won the election, but for Sava. In 2023, many believe, including myself, that maybe probably P2B defeated Tinubu and Atiku in that election, but he couldn't get it. So yes, whereas I'm in support of so-called, let's come together to create one candidate, if possible. But the notion that without that coalition we can't defeat Tinubu is wrong. And the idea that the biggest challenge is coming together is not true. The biggest and the most urgent work is to get free and fair election. And to get there, you have to fight against INEC, because INEC is the one, I've said before, all rigged elections are mostly orchestrated by the election management body in Nigeria. So what I expect this time is greater urgency to fight INEC and ensure free and fair election. Yes, we should all think about candidates coming together. I believe that with the way I assess Tinubu's government failure, I bet that P2B can defeat Tinubu squarely. But the bigger elephant in the room is INEC. Will election be free and fair? Will the judiciary be willing to pronounce when they rig the election? So I'm in support of possibility of having one united opposition, because together they can fight against the creeping impunity, the now bare knuckle authoritarianism. The Human Rights Foundation describes Nigeria currently as authoritarian regime. That's what they should come together to fight, so that we the voters, will have the opportunity to vote freely and those votes count. And I think that with good campaign, the opposition can win, particularly the NDC can win this election.